Hi there, I'm Bergeron, and this is one of my marionettes. And I'm going to go through the entire process of how to build a marionette. I'm going to show you how to sculpt the head, put everything together, make the body, put the strings onto the controller, and basically just show you how to have fun with a marionette. It's going to be a couple of videos long, so I hope you enjoy the process. I'm going to start with the head. So this is going to be my character. He's going to have a long nose. He might have a hat, but I'm starting to rethink that. I think he's probably going to be more along the lines of this character here without the hat. I think the lips are going to be slightly more pursed than this. I have an idea for what it's going to become, but I'm not fully sure yet. So these are just some preliminary sketches. You see, I've come up with some sketches about boot shapes and head shape and how to connect the head onto the dowel that I'm going to use. Okay, so we're going to build the heads for our mannequins out of this purple pinkish styrofoam, and we're going to measure it out into some 6" by 6" squares, and then we're going to glue it together. So I'm just going to use a black Sharpie here and make myself a couple of marks, and then I'm going to join those marks together. And then I'm going to make some more that are every 6 inches along this line. So and then we're going to just glue these together. And the way I'm going to glue these together is I'm just going to use a little bit of Weldbond glue. And if you've never used Weldbond glue before, I'm going to do a little commercial for it right now. Probably the best glue that you can use for gluing just about anything together. And I'm just going to put a couple of books on top of that and come back tomorrow and it'll be completely adhered together. Alright, so that's going to be the start of our head for our marionette. Of course, if you were making a smaller marionette, you might only need 3 of these, and you know, maybe just 3 or 4 inches. This material is kind of expensive, but you know, it's not overly expensive. I guess like a 10-foot long piece that's 2 foot wide was about $25. So I'm going to use this for the body, the head, maybe even some of the legs and the arms. So it's pretty cheap when you look at it, as I'm going to get a couple, maybe even 2 or 3 marionettes out of this material. This is my block of purple styrofoam, and when last time we looked at it, it was just a bunch of separated pieces, and you've seen on the video where I glued it together. So what I'm going to do now is just show you how we start to take away some of the extra that we aren't going to need and begin to refine our sculpture a little bit. So I'm going to use just a regular little utility knife, and you'll see how quickly this goes. All right. So I usually open it up significantly, sometimes almost all the way. Okay, so I've spent about an hour with my just my utility knife, carving away a lot of the rough areas from my soon-to-be marionette. You'll see I've sort of just rounded off the areas on the back of the head, started to define the hair a little bit, and I've defined some of the parts of the face. And so the majority of this was done with the utility knife. Some of the finer lines was just done with a regular X-Acto knife. And I just kind of got in there and took out the majority of the large chunks. And so I started to define some parts of it a little bit with some sandpaper. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a Dremel. So this is just a regular Dremel. And I'm going to use this, this is like a sandpaper kind of a bit on it. Get that so you can see it. It's a little bit pointed, so it should get into some of the nooks and crannies. And I'm going to set this up and I'm going to start. So I'll probably mute this video so you won't really hear me talking, but I'll get it close enough that you can see me doing some of the work. So I'm inside my studio, so the way that I have this set up is I'm working on a piece of plywood. So you can see this is just regular plywood board that I'm working on top of my desk. And I have very close by, I have my nozzle from my shop vac. So what this should do is, as I'm grinding away with this Dremel tool, the shop vac will inhale most of the dust particles in the air. But I'm also going to wear a face shield so that I don't get anything in my eyes. Okay, so safety first, safety glasses or a face shield. And here is my face shield. So it's a wide plastic, just fits on your head and protects your eyes and the rest of your face from getting stuff tossed into it. So I would highly recommend this. These are not expensive, probably less than 20 bucks. And certainly safety glasses are even less expensive than that. All right, so I'm gonna get set up and I'll get grinding away on this. All right, so we're back, and I realized yesterday after working on this that the nose that I had on here wasn't as big as I wanted. So I took this little scrap piece of this insulation and I just glued it onto the end. And so I'm going to sculpt this down to be approximately the size that I want it to be. So I just wanted to show you with the utility knife, I'm going to have about this much of the blade out, but I'm going to take off essentially the biggest pieces that I don't think I'm going to require. And I glued this on with the Weldbond Glue again. I would highly recommend that if you're doing any of this kind of work that you use the Weldbond Glue. And you'll see the sides here where it has been glued. The glue is a little bit hard to cut through, but with the utility knife it comes through really easily. So I'm going to take a little bit more off this, and you'll see with the utility knife it slices through this very easily. I use a little bit of a sawing motion as I go through it. With a really sharp new utility blade, it'll make it fairly easy to cut through. So this is subtractive sculpting, where basically we're just going to take off a little bit at a time until we get to the point where we want to leave the rest of it to some sanding. And this material sands super easily. Take this off here. I'll show you. This is a piece of, just a regular piece of sandpaper. And this is, I believe it's 100. Yeah, there's 100 there. So this is 100 grit sandpaper. And when you have a rough spot or something that you want to take down, you can just do that. And it comes out super smooth. So remember, you're going to paint this. You're probably going to give it a couple of coats of paint once you're done with all your sculpting. So it'll turn out very, very smooth. I'm going to work some more on this nose. You see the profile of the nose. It is going to come out quite a bit like that. I'm going to take a little bit more off this, and then I'll come back and show you again. Okay, so I've spent some time sanding here. I've made some adjustments to the hair. I also, I didn't like the way that this one particular corner went, so I drew with my green Sharpie where it was that I wanted to make the adjustment. And then I took my utility knife and I've carved off some of this. The other thing that I've spent some time on, probably only about half an hour or so, is just sanding some of this face. Remember, we're going to paint this with acrylic paint, so it's not super important that you fill in every little crack like this. All of these, this will all get covered up with paint very well. One thing that I didn't do was I didn't have my shop vac running for a few minutes, and so it sort of filled the air with a little bit of this styrofoam dust as I was sanding. So I would really strongly caution you to either do this outside or to have your shop vac running, you know, maybe less than a foot, say maybe 6 inches, 15 centimeters away from where it is that you're sanding, and it'll pick up all of this fine dust, and you won't have to worry about breathing it in or getting stuff covered. I would really suggest to you that you don't do this inside your house. It's not going to turn out well for you, and you know, your spouse is going to yell at you. So I'm going to do a little bit more sanding on this, but I'm going to wait until I get my shop vac back. All right, or I go buy a new one, I guess. So I guess the lesson for right now is If you're going to make any adjustments, draw it out first. You might draw it on here a couple of times and then make your cuts. Don't go just right to the utility knife and start hacking away. Figure out what it is that you want to cut off first and then do that. Okay, so what I want to do today is I want to attach, this is going to be the neck, and this is going to be the top of the head for the head control for this marionette. So this little piece of dowel is going to get put into the center of the head here with a little tiny eye hook. So this is a very small eye hook, and that's going to go into this piece of dowel and get put into the top of the head for the head control. And then this piece of dowel, which is a 1-inch piece of dowel, and it's 4 inches long. It's also going to have on the bottom of it another eye hook, and this will be where the head attaches to the body. Okay, so this is going to actually get sunk. We're going to drill a hole from the bottom in here, a couple of inches, and so the rest of this will hang out and be the neck. Okay, so I wanted to show you how it is that I'm going to do that. So I've cut both of these pieces of dowel with a saw like this. This is a coping saw. And the reason I use this in the studio is because it doesn't make too much of a mess. I don't have to worry about dust flying all over the place. And it's got a fairly sharp blade. These are also fairly inexpensive. You can get these at a hardware store for probably less than $10. And a package of blades is probably less than $5. So it's a really inexpensive and easy way to work in the studio without getting dust all over the place. I have other big tools out in my other wood shop, but they tend to make a pretty good mess. So this is also a Dremel tool, which you would have seen me use to do a little bit of the carving around the face earlier. This Dremel tool, I've swapped out the, I'll see if I can find it here. I swapped out this thing and put a drill bit on it. So all I'm going to do now is figure out, and I'm just going to do this by eye, sort of, figure out where it is that I want to make my hole. And this is called a pilot hole. So I'm going to drill a pilot hole, and this drum will be a little bit loud for a second. I had it unplugged while I was swapping out the blades. Safety first. All right, so I'm going to turn this on, and it goes very fast. That's all the hole that I'm going to make for that one. And for this one, the same. Now in this, I will put my little piece of, my little tiny eye hook in there, and it will screw in. So now that we have a pilot hole, it screws in super easy. All right. Okay, so this is going to be for, again, for the neck. And this is where the body is going to attach to the neck. All right, but I have that in there, but I'm going to take it back out for now. So I'm going to drill a couple of holes. This first hole is going to go into the top in the center here. And then it's going to get drilled out. This is going to get drilled in the bottom, I should say, so that this will fit in. And this is going to get drilled out on the top so that this will fit in. This is a 3/8 dowel, 3/8 of an inch, and this is a 1-inch dowel. It's 1 inch across in diameter. This is 3/8 across in diameter. All right, I'll get my other drill set up and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've taken my ruler and I've just laid it on here, corner to corner, and drawn a couple of lines so I get an X where I think approximately the center is going to be for this. And I've also done the same on the bottom. I've gone corner to corner and laid out an X so I can sort of figure out where each hole is going to go. I think this is going to be, I've looked at it a couple of times now, I think this is going to be the center of gravity for, we want to have it fairly centralized so that our control will work pretty easily. So this is going to go down about 2 inches on, so there'll be about 2 inches of this hanging out. So a good way to do that on a drill, so this is my Dewalt drill and my spade bit is on it, and I'm just unplugging it for safety. And so I'm going to measure 2 inches on here. So I'll just lay this down and I'll show you. So from the very tip of this bit to 2 inches is going to be about this far. So when my drill bit gets to that green line there, I guess you can see it there. When my drill bit gets to that green line, I'm going to stop pushing it in. All right, here's my 2 little eye hooks and move those over. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to center this on here, and I'm going to give it a little turn. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to plug it back in first. So again, I'm going to center this on here and just give it a little turn. I'm just giving it a little bit of pressure at a time. I'm not going super fast. I can't really see where my little green line is. Here it is here, and you'll see we're not quite there yet, so I'm going to keep going. Fairly slow. Fairly slow. My green line is right here, so a little bit further. Maybe another 1/2 inch. See? Another 1/2 inch. Right about there. All right, so I'm going to turn my vacuum on for a second. So I turned my vacuum on, and now you can see I have a pretty clean hole. And this will almost fit in it. See, it fits in very, very snugly with just a little twist. So you don't want it to fit in too snugly. So you can take your drill and sort of just clean this hole out a little bit. Clean the edges off a little bit, go around a little bit of a circle. Just like that, get some more of that out. All right, so you'll see I'm going to put the end, so here's my end that the eye hook is going to go in, so that's going to be out, and this is going to go in, and there we go. And so now we have something to hold on to while we're painting, and we don't have to hold on to the head, but we can hold on to this part to paint it. All right, I'm going to change up my drill bit, and I'm going to drill this, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to insert the other little piece of dowel into the top. All right, so I'm going to do the top now, and I've measured the length of my dowel to the length of my spade bit. These are called spade bits, and excluding the point, but for here from the spade part, is approximately that long. You'll see where I have it marked on the green on
spade bit. Okay, so I want to go about that far in to the top of my marionette. I'm going to move that out of the way. So I'm going to try to go right in here. So on my drill, I'll put my bit in, make sure it's good and tight. Okay, so this is going to just go in there, and you might have to tap it in the last little bit with a hammer or something, but this should go just below the surface. All right, not all the way through, but just below the surface. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to take this dowel, and again, this is Weldbond Glue. I'm just going to take a little bit of this Weldbond and you'll see the rest of the glue is sort of filled in that little hole. The pilot hole as well as the holes around the outside, that's perfectly fine. The little eye hook will go right into that, no problem at all. All right, so that's in pretty good. And then I'm gonna put in the one on this side. Again, I'm gonna keep this hole is gonna be on the outside. And that's that. So Weldbond dries pretty much perfectly clear. So these will be fully dry in probably about, well, less than 24 hours, but they'll be completely dried in there. Okay, so, all right, once those are dry, I'm gonna start painting. All right, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you got any useful information from this, please click like. Thanks for watching. See you in a little while.